He called himself a king, and he expected everyone around him to not only treat him as such, but obey him as such. And he became a music mogul, an icon, and a legend in the hip hop community. We watched him build his empire with Bad Boy, Sean John clothing brand. We watched him on MTV with Making the Bands. But behind the empire, behind the music, behind the fame, there now stands a man that's accused of 20 years of violence, coercion, sexual exploitations, and it all came crashing down and the mask was dropped not only when he lost his girl Cassie, but when Cassie filed suit. But this isn't just a celebrity scandal. This is a federal RICO case with very disturbing evidence. Some of that evidence, which has been leaked out into the internet streets through mainstream media, YouTubers, and Twitter fingers. But I am going to be doing a series on these transcripts that you see right here on the screen. Those are the transcripts to day one of the Diddy trial. And guess what? We're going to be breaking them all down. So let's break down the government's explosive opening statements and get this series started, because this is the trial of Sean Diddy Combs.
Don't make money, then it don't make sense. You don't make money, then keep it 2 cents. Hating on me, cause the bitch gotta get it. They mad cause the bank account got 7 digits.
What's poppin', everybody? Welcome back to the bar. It's your girl, Henny, and I'm about to pour plenty of the hot Henny that y'all love to sip on. So if you're new here, welcome. Please be sure to like, comment, and of course, subscribe. Click that notification bell, select all so that you get notified whenever I do a video. And if you are a returning Mob Down Henny Gang member, yeah. Now let's get into this hot doc right here. Now, as I explained to you in the intro, we are going to be doing a series based off of Sean Diddy Combs' trial. And it's going to be stemming from the transcripts. Now, while I'm not going to read this transcript in its entirety, you will have to become a member of the channel in order to get the full breakdown of everything word for word, verbatim, on every page of the documents. I'm going to be giving you summaries and skipping to the salacious and juicy parts at times of all of these court docs. So like I said to you, tonight we are going to get into the opening statements of AUSA attorney Miss Johnson and defense attorney Miss Garagos. Now, the first part that we are going to begin with in this breakdown is section 1, and we're going to break this down of who is Sean Diddy Combs. Okay, so now Miss Johnson, who is with AUSA, which is the government, she said that to the public, which is true, Diddy was known to us as Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, and Brother Love. He was a cultural icon, a businessman, and he was larger than life. But she says that there was another side of him, a side that ran a criminal enterprise. And she says that during the trial, you're going to hear about 20 years of Diddy's crimes. But she also says he did not do it alone. He had an inner circle of bodyguards and high-ranking employees who helped him commit crimes and helped him cover them up. The crimes that he committed were kidnapping, arson, rugs, legs crimes, bribery, and obstruction of justice. These are just some of the crimes that Diddy and his inner circle are said to have committed again and again over the course of 20 years. And she said that it was going to all come out in this trial. Now, Ms. Gregarios for the defense, which is one of Diddy's lawyers, she struck back and clapped back at this, and she said to the jury that the prosecution story was just that. It was a story. She said that the government would rely heavily on old headlines, tabloid level sensationalism, and claims from individuals who had every reason to lie, exaggerate, or seek personal gain. She also told the jury that this was not an episode of Law and Order. And it's not a documentary. It's real life. And real life is complicated. She urged the jury to look for what the government doesn't say and to pay close attention to what evidence they actually brought into court and not just alleged. Baby, she was sitting up here talking about don't buy they smoking mirrors because they getting ready to come up here and lie to y'all. But that's what they're supposed to be doing. Their job is to kind of like smear everything that the prosecution comes out with. Their job is to plant that reasonable doubt into your mind. They don't really have to focus on innocence, which is why I believe that they are not denying the fact that there was domestic violence in here, that there was some type of prostitution that was going on. They're not denying that stuff. They're denying that any of this was done and that it was RICO RICO chargeable, meaning he didn't commit a crime. They're going overtime. But let's get back into this and let's not get caught up into my ramblings, because y'all know I can go on and on. Let me get this document off the screen from y'all because I'm not actually going to read that. But let's get into Cassie's alleged abuse. All right. Miss Johnson took us back to one night when Diddy was on the hunt for Cassie. And she also says that for years, Diddy physically abused Cassie. He also allegedly exploited her, forcing her to have legs with male escorts while he watched and recorded. But he wasn't just watching and recording, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, because he was over there self-pleasing by the table with the cat. Okay, I don't know if he was sitting by the table with the candles, but by candlelight and dim lighting and the glistening of baby oil and Astroglide, he was over there self-pleasuring himself as he was recording Cassie over there with one of the male escorts, getting it on and popping in them freak offs. Okay, he was involved but not involved, and baby, he was getting it all on candid camera, but he was being sure to keep himself off of the camera, which is why he was able to use those videos as blackmail against Cassie. Because see, if he's sitting over there, no face, no case, it can't be used against him. But anyway, child, that's for another video. But that night that Diddy learned that he had lost control of Cassie, he found out that Cassie was seeing another man. And let's just be very clear. Cassie never said that she was monogamous to him. She did admit that she had cheated on him. She did. And when Diddy found out that she was with another man on this night, he got furious and he set out to find Cassie and the other man. He also threatened to unalive her, but he couldn't find Cassie and this man all by himself. Oh, no. So he took bodyguards. And he went and woke up one of his employees from their apartment bed, woke her up and said, let's go. Got her to go get into an SUV and go with him to try to find Cassie. And when they got to this guy's house, they broke into his home, but he was not there. And when he finally caught up with Cassie, baby, he beat Cassie, kicked her. He put hands, feet, and knee bows on Cassie, okay? Real bad. And to keep her back under his thumb, he showed her a freak off tape just to remind her that he could drop that at any point in time whenever he felt like it and whenever she decided to get out of line. And I know y'all want to know. What did Miss Gregarios have to say to this? She directly addressed the government's use of Cassie's story, pointing out that Cassie had already filed a civil lawsuit, which was quickly settled, which is true because it was settled in 24 hours. And baby, I know I was not just the only one that was sitting over here like, 24 hours, you guilty. Diddy guilty. He did it. Diddy did it. He did it. Because there's no way you're going to pay in 24 hours unless there's a little guilt in there somewhere, right? Now, she emphasized that this was not a criminal trial about Cassie. She said that the government was recycling decades-old civil claim that was resolved out of court. But we found out about this quote-unquote civil claim last year. And I don't know how it's a decade-old civil claim because it was filed. Matter of fact, it wasn't even last year. It was filed in 2023. So I thought a decade was 10 years, not 2. But again, the math ain't mathing, but we're going to let you slide on that one, okay? But she also warned that they would present Cassie as a helpless victim when in reality, the relationship was complex, long-term, and often consensual. And that is what they had Cassie on the stand trying to build today. They were trying to build up the fact that Cassie was in a consensual relationship with Diddy and that these freak-offs were not as the government was painting it, as Cassie was saying saying it was when she got up on the stand. They're saying that she was consenting to all of this. She was setting up the freak offs. She was going and purchasing the lingerie, purchasing the Sleggs toys. She was buying the Astroglide, buying the baby oil, placing the inflatable pool in the center of the damn hotel room, laying down the linens in the whole 9 yards, and willingly taking the rugs. That's what they're saying. All right. And they said that they were going to prove this through messages, through photos, through videos, showing that Cassie willingly remained in contact with Diddy even long after the alleged abuse. But how often have we heard that? And I don't like this. I don't like that the government is trying to turn domestic violence around and make it seem like, oh, well, you stayed so long, so it couldn't have been that bad. Obviously, you don't know how this works. But then again, this is the defense and this is their job. Their job is to plant reasonable doubt into everyone's mind. And I see that it's starting to work on a lot of people that are out there. But listen, I'm not judging. I'm not saying nothing. I'm holding all of my opinions till we get towards the end. When deliberations are happening and all of that, that's when I will begin deliberating. Y'all not going to bully me into giving my opinion until then. Okay. Now, let's get into what the prosecution and the defense had to say about the criminal enterprise, because remember, this is a RICO. So Ms. Johnson says that the government will prove that Diddy operated what amounts to be a continuing criminal enterprise using his wealth, his influence, his celebrity to recruit victims, intimidate witnesses, and protect himself from prosecution. Okay. She said that the jury would hear from victims and insiders, some of whom worked for Diddy directly, who would testify about being ordered to carry out threats, destroy evidence, and provide rugs for women for parties. Ms. Johnson described an operation where everyone had a role, from assistants to security guards, and everyone answered to Diddy. There go that king thing again, right? And Miss Gregarios, well, she clapped back and she said, you know, they framed the enterprise, the enterprise claim as a massive overreach. Like she said, they reaching. Okay, this man ain't running no criminal enterprise. He just over there doing his little 1-2 in his shoddy suit still, but go back on task. So the government, she said, wants you to believe that being rich, famous, and surrounded by employees is the same thing as running a criminal organization. And I'm going to say this. I'm not going to say that it's the same thing as running a criminal organization. But what I'm going to say is it's similar to running a criminal organization when you think about it, because they got maids and butlers and chefs and do boys and do girls, and everybody is underneath their thumb. I mean, there's some similarities and it ain't the same, but I get what she's saying. But no, the government is not making him out to be some Nino Brown or a Scarface type of person, but he doesn't have to be those types of people to be able to run some type of a criminal organization now, does he? Ms. Gregarios also explained that the defense would show how the so-called insiders were either disgruntled former employees, people seeking immunity, or individuals who had previously tried and failed to extort Diddy. The prosecution will present gossip. We will present facts. Baby, she just sat here and said that the government is nothing but a bunch of gossiping Bettys, and that they sitting on a park bench smoking Newport Longs, sipping on 40 ounces, which nobody drinks those no more, and Night Train, and they just gossiping on the bench with rollers in their head. Meanwhile, they said they bougie, they got the facts, not opinions. And I don't know, because it seemed like the prosecution had a lot of evidence yesterday. They had binders. They had a binder with all of the escorts in it, and Cassie was sitting there naming all of them. She knew them all when she met them. She got me. Well, I guess you would know everybody's name when you sitting up there freaking off weekly. And them weekly freak offs was anywhere from a day to 4 days long. And then you freaking off with Diddy by himself right after. Like he was just so turned on, he couldn't even let your punana breathe. He just had to get up in it. So I understand how, you got the mouth sores and the UTIs and stuff. I don't know nothing about none of that stuff. So I can't sit up here and say, Anyway, let's get into the evidence and the witnesses, okay? Because Miss Johnson said that the jury was going to see text messages and photos and surveillance videos and financial records that corroborated the victim's stories. Miss Johnson promised that the government would call credible witnesses, including victims who had never gone public before, and that each of them would provide pieces of the same pattern. And that is what the government is trying to prove here. They are proving a pattern of behavior, because if you can prove a pattern of behavior, you definitely can prove that there is parts of a RICO, because it has to be something that has been going on for at least 10 years. And if they're saying 20, that's 2 decades, which is double what they said it has to be. Okay. The government's message was very clear that this wasn't about one bad relationship or one incident, that this was about a pattern of conduct and system of abuse and a man who orchestrated it all. And of course, Miss Gregario, she cautioned the jury not to be swayed by dramatic testimony or emotional storytelling. It's like, to me, I don't know. Y'all tell me down in the comments. It's sounding very much to me like the prosecution will say something and the defense is just like, don't listen to none of that. They're gossipers. They over there being all dramatic and just making emotional stories to try to sway you her way. Don't listen to none of that. Ms. Gregarios further warned that many of the prosecution's witnesses had been offered deals, okay, protection, or financial incentives to testify. Now, if you watch any of my other videos where I talked about any of this Diddy stuff, you'll see that I did break down the RICO, and I broke down how he ended up on this RICO. He, being Diddy, ended up on this RICO by himself, because a lot of the defendants or co-conspirators that would have been placed on this were either offered deals or they were offered immunity. And now the prosecution is saying that. And I'm saying, that sounds about right to me. And people don't want to go to jail nowadays. They trying to make snitching cool, and it ain't. But I'm just saying, they anyway, she said the jury would hear from defense experts and see documents that proved key parts of the government's narrative. What you're going to find, she concluded, is that this case is based more on character assassination than criminal conduct. And I'm sorry, I can't say that. If you've got evidence of the criminal conduct, I see it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I see, all right, you talking about human trafficking. Okay, when you bring a human across state lines and they go and they enter into a arranged deal with an escort, you traffic that human. When you And it can be considered sex trafficking as well, because you brought them across state lines to engage in sexual activities. Okay. When you bring an escort across state lines to engage in sexual activity with you, that's still sex trafficking and human trafficking. That's the Mann Act. I think that's the Mann Act. It's one of them acts. There's a lot of them acts, but that's criminal right there. And I mean, if he's over there beating up people and blowing up their cars, because we heard from Kid Cudi himself, and he said that Diddy did blow up his car, and in court, Cassie testified that Diddy wanted to sit down with her and Kid Cudi to discuss Cassie and Diddy's relationship. And when Kid Cudi had asked him about the car, he turned to Kid Cudi and said, "What car?" He didn't know what car he was talking about. I mean, the car didn't exist no more because it was blown into oblivion. But I mean, damn, Diddy, you ain't have to do him like that and say what car. You know what car he talking about. The one that went kaboom. That's the car. But anyway, I don't know. Some people are gonna say that it is character assassination. Some people are feeling like it's criminal. More it is criminal conduct that is there. Me, I see both sides of it right now, and I'm just going to keep myself in the middle. And based on the court docs and stuff like that, we still gonna have fun. But I'm gonna be, sticking to what's on the paper, because I want to see how this all plays out. Okay, because we are going from freak offs to blackmail to drugs to freak offs, king nights, hotel nights, because that's what Diddy called them, freak offs too. They went from freak offs to king nights to hotel nights. It's like the name was evolving. However, the pattern in which the freak offs went down, that didn't change. I'm wondering, is this the Diddy parties that everybody was talking about, the freak offs? Because this don't sound like the freak offs that everybody was telling us about. Because when we first heard freak offs, I was thinking orgies. But anyway, Child, I'm going to say this. This trial has only just begun and we have already been pushed back and blown back, honey. Okay. But the question now is, can the prosecution actually prove 20 years of crime beyond a reasonable doubt? And what else will be uncovered along the way? I don't even know if we want to know the answer to that question. But I'm going to be right here covering every twist and turn of the Diddy trial. And trust me, it's about to get even darker. So if you want to keep up with this, be sure that you subscribe. Y'all get down in that comment section and let me know what you think down below. And lean on the like. Lean on the like. And guess what? I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace, everybody.